China mandates strict prevention measures against the latest Delta variant surge. Questions rise over the Chinese Communist Party's zero-tolerance lockdown strategy and if it's actually working. A video emerges from China's new virus hotspot. Rumors circulating online say a student there died shortly after getting a dose of a Chinese-made vaccine. China's Batwoman scientist warns of more deadly COVID-19 variants to come. She's the researcher behind Wuhan's controversial virus lab. In the U.S., Dr. Anthony Fauci gave a similar warning. Locals say authorities in one Chinese city released water from nearby reservoirs without warning, flooding the area in the middle of the night. It's the second report of its kind. And China's antitrust regulators are investigating top American investment firm Blackstone. That's over its $3 billion deal with one of China's largest real estate developers. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The eastern city of Yangzhou is dominating headlines in China, all because of the surging Delta variant. The highly contagious strain accounts for almost half of the city's new Chinese Communist Party virus, or COVID-19 cases as of Sunday, the highest since January. The Delta variant was first found in India. Yangzhou City is now the biggest hotspot for the virus strain in China, overtaking nearby Nanjing City. That's where the Delta variant outbreak first appeared in the country. Chinese health authorities have dispatched over 4,000 healthcare workers to the city as of Sunday. The city has also kicked off mass virus testing, but it seems to be running into setbacks. On Sunday, Chinese media reported a cluster of infections inside a testing station in the city. A local resident had passed the virus to 23 others while in line there. At least 8 local officials were punished for the incident. In less than a month, China has punished more than 30 officials nationwide amid the Delta surge. That's for their failures in curbing the country's recent outbreaks. Controversial news from China's Yangzhou City. There, a student reportedly died after receiving a dose of a Chinese-made COVID-19 vaccine. A video circulating on Chinese social media platforms appears to show a middle school student from Yangzhou City lying on the ground. Details say he had just received a shot of China's vaccine. He collapsed not long after. Bystanders tried to revive him, but he didn't make it. Chinese authorities haven't reported any deaths related to vaccinated patients, but some Chinese citizens have posted on social media saying otherwise, detailing death cases they say haven't made it to official reports. The latest Delta surge is challenging the Chinese Communist Party's zero-tolerance lockdown strategy. The regime imposed strict lockdowns, and it is testing and tracing aggressively across the country. But experts say this could be both costly and disruptive.
The CCP's leaders used to think they could keep the CCP virus out of China. That's until the highly transmissible Delta variant started spreading rapidly throughout the country in recent months. In the face of the new Delta-driven virus outbreak, which spread to 17 provinces in China, Beijing is responding with the same strategy as last year, isolating cities, mass testing, and aggressive tracing. The so-called zero-tolerance strategy of strict quarantine is once again back in China. But will it work this time? Experts say maybe not.
The transmission rate of this variant may be beyond the CCP's previous epidemic prevention measures. Once you can't prevent it, measures will fail. Then it will spread very quickly.
China has followed a zero-tolerance strategy for dealing with the virus for more than a year, and it continues with the latest outbreak. Now across China, neighborhoods are spotted under strict lockdown. Over 30 Chinese provinces have ordered residents not to leave their provinces. Millions were tested in mere days, and authorities are seen using extreme tactics with lockdown measures. In a video circulating online on Sunday, officials are seen sealing residents inside their own homes.
The strategy of sealing people in the building and not letting them go out. This kind of extreme tyranny will become a full-blown nervousness that won't allow this society and people's lives, including the economy, to function properly.
Experts say the cost of maintaining this approach will become very high.
The economy has almost come to a full stop. No production, no research, no school, and small businesses can't run, so the pressure on people's livelihood is too great.
China has already seen an economic slowdown. Many financial services have downgraded their forecasts for China's full-year GDP in 2021. Despite the regime's costly strategy, Delta-driven virus cases seem to be rising, and more questions remain about whether China's self-made vaccines can stop them.
They know that vaccines alone couldn't really withstand the outbreak. They are actually very worried. So from this point of view, they can only depend on the so-called zero-tolerance strategy.
In China, the Delta-driven outbreak first started at an airport in Jiangsu province's capital, Nanjing. It then quickly sparked what has now become China's widest outbreak since Wuhan's. That's despite Nanjing Airport staff's vaccination rate reaching about 90%. Chinese health officials say China's self-made vaccines are less effective against the Delta strain, but the shot still offers some protection.
The Delta variant is driving a surge of COVID cases around the world, but there could be more. Last week, China's Batwoman, Shi Zhenli, behind the controversial Wuhan lab, warned deadly variants are expected to emerge. Meanwhile, in the U.S., Dr. Anthony Fauci gave a similar warning, saying variants worse than Delta could develop. That's if more Americans don't get vaccinated. Shi Zhenli, who has slammed claims of the lab leak theory, appears to agree with Fauci. She told China state-backed newspaper The People's Daily that the increasing infection rate gave the virus more opportunities to mutate and select. The virologist heads the Wuhan Institute of Virology. She and her lab are currently at the center of questions about the origins of the CCP virus. Shi Zhenli's latest claim comes after a British study earlier last week. The study says it is almost certain that a new variant will emerge that beats the current vaccines. A southwestern province of China was hit by heavy rain over the weekend. Again, the local authorities discharged water from reservoirs during the night without warning, giving people no time to evacuate.
Heavy rains drenched some parts of China's southwestern Sichuan province over the weekend. The downpour combined with released water from nearby reservoirs, causing major floods there. Local shops now submerged underwater. Store owners are seen attempting to rescue their goods. The high water also stopped many cars in their tracks, leaving them stuck in the streets. Buildings also took damage. Rains in the area stopped on Monday, but water is still a problem. Many places are still impassable. Concerning flood reports are also coming out of Dazhou City inside Sichuan province. Residents there say water was released from nearby reservoirs in the middle of the night, sparking the flood and leaving locals no time to evacuate. While over in Dazhou City, several counties are reportedly among the worst hit.
There was a heavy rainstorm, and the reservoir discharge happened at around 1 a.m. When the torrents came, there was no way for the people to escape. It's a disaster and caused great loss. Water rose almost 7 feet deep, 2 meters, and washed away a lot. Hundreds of shops are gone. There's nothing left. Now the water recedes. The roads are broken, with no water, no gas, no electricity.
Videos show people shouting for help as currents threaten to wash them away. But daring rescues pull through at the last minute.
There's a reservoir, and it was discharged without warning. Some villagers were in severe condition yesterday because the torrents were too strong, and some houses were destroyed.
Dazhou residents say at least several dozen counties were struck by floods, with almost 1 million people affected. Many were washed away. But China's state-run media outlets say otherwise. Reports claim just over 120,000 people were victimized, and that no deaths have been recorded so far.
Beijing's antitrust regulators are investigating American investment firm Blackstone. It's over a $3 billion deal with one of China's largest real estate developers. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
American investment company Blackstone is under investigation over its deal with Soho China, one of China's largest real estate developers. Beijing's investigation by antitrust regulators could hold up the $3 billion deal for around 6 months. And if approved, it will be the company's biggest bet on China's commercial real estate. News of the deal boosted Soho China's share price by 88% to 59 US cents in June. Since July 22nd, amid rumors that Beijing authorities might investigate the deal, their stock price dropped by 22% to 41 US cents. A competition law expert at Beijing Intellectual Property Law Association told the Economic Observer on Saturday that the deal may pass, but he said there could be another investigation focusing on national security concerns. Soho China owns and operates 20 real estate projects in Beijing and Shanghai. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
This issue triggered a heated discussion on Chinese social media about why the head of Soho China, Pan Shiyi, wants to sell out the shares. The question is whether he wants to get cash and flee China, or is it just a standard strategic business move? Pan is a good friend of another real estate tycoon, Ren Zhiqiang. Ren was sentenced to prison due to his criticism of the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping. In Pan's blog, he has pointed out mistakes the Chinese authorities have made. Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba has fired a manager who allegedly sexually assaulted a female employee. This is the company already under pressure from crackdowns by authorities. Eve Johnson reports.
Chinese tech giant Alibaba has fired a manager accused of sexually assaulting a female employee. That's according to a memo by Chief Executive Daniel Zhang, seen by Reuters. The company is already under pressure from a regulatory crackdown. Now it's dealing with an uproar on social media set off by the accusations. A female employee made the claims in an 11-page document uploaded onto Alibaba's internal network. In her account, she said she was assaulted during a business trip with the manager, who was her boss, and a client in July. First, she said, the client kissed her. After drinking alcohol, she woke up in a hotel room the next day. She said she had no clothes on and no memory of what had happened. But CCTV footage from the hotel showed her boss had entered the room 4 times during the night. After reporting the incident, the employee said Human Resources had agreed to fire the boss and give her some time off, but had apparently not followed through. After making the rounds on Alibaba's internal network, the story went on to kick up a storm on social media. Alibaba has also suspended other staff members in connection to the case, and police say they're investigating. In a statement, Zhang said, quote, starting from me, starting from management, starting from human resources, everyone at Alibaba must empathize, reflect, and take action. China's Me Too movement began in 2018 with an accusation of sexual harassment on a college campus. But Me Too soon came under pressure from authorities, with many cases still unresolved.
The Chinese Communist Party's media mouthpiece, the People's Daily, warned Alibaba in an opinion piece on Monday to be careful with its power. It wrote, not only must power be kept in a cage, but capital too. Don't even imagine that you control everything like the South Korean Kaibo. This is China. And the article also said Alibaba urgently needs a major change to remove its old rotten ways and grow new good ways. Chinese authorities are cracking down on domestic companies, and their list seems to be getting longer. Kuaishou Technology is the latest target amid China's tech crackdown. Shares of the video sharing app fell to a record low on Friday. The post-listing lockup on sales of the company's shares just expired, leading investors to dump the stock. The trend reflects fear in the market over what Beijing will target next. The stock is now devalued by about 80% compared to its peak value earlier this year. But it's not the only Chinese company suffering from Beijing's trillion-dollar clampdown. Last week, shares of Chinese dairy companies, e-cigarette makers, and alcohol producers also took a tumble. That's after state-controlled media outlets published reports about alleged dangers related to their products. China's regulators have been causing stock market anxiety since last year, even in the U.S. One Chinese company was prevented from listing on the stock market, while more than 30 companies were ordered to carry out internal inspections. Among them, online shopping giant Alibaba, tech developer Tencent, rideshare service Didi, and shopping platform Meituan. Beijing's regulators have also slapped some companies with fines for what they called anti-competitive practices. Chinese authorities' crackdown on big companies has already cost the industry trillions of dollars. And one expert says we shouldn't count on those stocks recovering anytime soon. He talks with NTD's Evelyn Lee about why.
Experts say this shows that the regime has no problem sacrificing investor interests to achieve its public priorities. Anders Kors says that Xi Jinping isn't thinking about second and third order effects that could include a decoupling from the U.S. And now investors are skittish.
So they're looking for signals from state media sources, the smallest of investigations by the government. They're predicting that could wipe out billions of dollars.
China commentator Ren Yi says that companies and investors are behind the curve when it comes to anticipating regulations in China. So when state media criticized video platforms for their vulgar content, investors of the largest video and live streaming firms like Kuaishou reacted. Kors says that Xi is making an attempt to expand China's influence and impose certain principles on his own society at the same time. But as a communist regime, it isn't guided by the best economic thinking.
The larger Politburo beneath are providing him with economic analysis that is probably faulty because it is focused on trying to please him and trying to cater to his preconceptions and biases.
Kors thinks that big investors will be unwinding their investments. That's because the West is becoming increasingly aware of his more aggressive and predatory approach. And indeed, Cathie Wood's ARK Invest was rapidly shedding its Chinese stocks amid the crackdown.
Aggressive, even predatory approach of China is only increasing.
So he says it's not going to change anytime soon. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And one of the biggest telecom companies in the world is facing hard times. In the last quarter, Huawei's revenue fell about 40%. The U.S. has previously called the company an arm of the CCP surveillance state. NTD's Arlene Richards reports.
Huawei's chairman says the company's aim is to survive, as revenue plunged 38% in the latest quarter. This is the third straight decline in quarterly revenue for Huawei.
U.S. sanctions are having an effect on the company. And what the United States essentially did was say that Huawei can no longer access semiconductor chips made using any U.S. technology.
The U.S. sanctioned Huawei back in 2019, preventing it from doing business with American firms like Google. As a result, Huawei's consumer division, which used to be its biggest, dropped 47% in revenue.
At the same time, of course, the United States has also itself restricted Huawei from selling 5G networking equipment in the United States. It's pressured other U.S. allies like UK and Australia to do similarly.
Huawei's carrier division, which sells 5G and telecommunications infrastructure, saw revenue drop 14% year over year. Huawei says delays in China's 5G rollout also affected them. Their enterprise business, which sells things like cloud services and software, posted a revenue increase of 18.2%. They made a lot of headway outside China, and Huawei says the division is their most promising growth engine this year. Meanwhile, unable to use Android, Huawei launched its own operating system, Harmony OS. Harmony is currently in 50 million of its phones in China. And last month, Huawei unveiled its latest smartphone, the P50, which isn't able to use super-fast 5G internet because of chip restrictions. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Shanghai banned English tests in primary schools in its new curriculum plan. The new plan also mandates classes on Xi Jinping's thoughts for all primary and middle school students. Officials say schools must stick to an education in socialism and revolution.
Shanghai is making changes to its education system, banning English tests in its primary schools and making the so-called Xi Jinping thought a compulsory class. That's according to the city's new curriculum for fall. New rules also ban any unauthorized English textbooks from outside China. The new plan makes classes focusing on Xi Jinping's thought compulsory in all primary and middle schools in Shanghai. The term refers to the communist leader's ideology, what's described as socialism with Chinese characteristics. The Shanghai Education Bureau is also emphasizing infusing a culture of revolution and socialism into the entire education process from elementary to middle school. US-based scholar Wu Zhuolai says the Chinese Communist Party is trying to internally strengthen its control by promoting Xi Jinping worship and externally by taking tough measures.
It's to ask our kids to learn less from outside of the curriculum, learn less English, and the time saved is to be put to learning Xi Jinping's thoughts. That's sheer brainwashing, because English allows you to know the world.
Ms. Li from Shanghai told NTD that it's easy to be enslaved if people cannot see the world outside.
Only when you allow kids to learn English, to observe families and countries' different people, that they can have a larger scope and develop their own opinion, then they know to be critical of the CCP's narratives and not to follow the CCP's instructions.
Ms. Li says Shanghai is less brainwashed among the first-tier Chinese cities. That's why the regime made its first move on this front in Shanghai.
A Sunday rally in Philadelphia's Chinatown drew lots of attention from residents and onlookers. The purpose of the rally? To encourage people to reject the Chinese Communist Party. NTD News was at the scene.
The rally was in support of the 380 million Chinese people who have quit the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, over the past 16 years. The rally organizers said she also wants to raise awareness of the CCP's many atrocities. She gave us one example.
In 1976, the Tangshan earthquake resulted in about 240,000 deaths, which were avoidable. Seismologists gave early and accurate warnings, but the Cultural Revolution was going on at the time, and the local authorities feared for the stability of the regime, so they chose not to take any precautionary measures. The massive death toll made rescue efforts difficult, and the CCP refused to accept any assistance from the international community.
The rally's message caught the ear of a local teacher. He told us what it was like for him to live under communist rule.
And I, being a German teacher, have had experience of living in East Germany, so I know what the dangers of socialism and communism are. I know where people did not have the opportunity to travel, did not have the opportunity of religious freedom, did not even have the opportunity to speak openly about their personal heartfelt beliefs. The Chinese people deserve that. Here we are in the city of Liberty, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, we the people, which is a unique concept. From the people we lead our country and we lead our lives. For anybody to want to take that away is a crime. And I feel ashamed that I see elements coming into our country, the USA, and trying to turn us into a socialist country.
A local software engineer also felt strongly about the theme of the rally.
In any other place where the communist government was established, whether it's in North Korea, etc., you can see the right away, once the communism established and the government, the corrupt government is in power, the ordinary people suffer. Doesn't matter where you are, what work you do, you don't have rights, you don't have freedoms. There is a very good saying, it is very easy to be communist in a free country, but it's almost impossible to be free in a communist country.
The rally organizer has this message for the Chinese people. As human beings, we have the duty to denounce crimes against humanity. Please quit the Chinese Communist Party, the Communist Youth League, and their affiliate organizations, and separate yourself from immorality.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.